So Kamala Harris lost. With the way democracy and republic work, we just have to accept the result and let things play out for the next 4 years. There's really no point getting all riled up at this point. America is governed by the elected. So honestly, if people really did decide that Trump was the better candidate, regardless of how gullible you may take them as, this is how the process works. So nothing we can do about it now. I know I, like many others, have been wondering why in the hole was Kamala Harris underperforming compared to Biden, who was already showing clear sign of mental decline when he ran for office, especially with women, white women. You would think the two candidates, right, Harris and Trump, or the two parties, couldn't be further away from each other when it came to women's rights to abortion when Roe v. Wade was overturned. But somehow Biden got even more voter turnouts than Harris, and I'm not sure what happened there. And in this election, the margin between Trump and Harris for white women on a national scope was insignificant, right? Or there wasn't enough of a gap as I thought there would be. Apparently, all the protesting and outrage were for optics. That or the red wave came out big this time, but that also doesn't really add up because there was far less, voter turnout, generally speaking. Now, that's not to say there weren't decrementing factors for Harris that led up to this election. I didn't keep up to date with everything revolving around politics or follow her campaign much until before or around October, if I remember. But I say one of the most polarizing decisions during her campaign was not criticizing Biden at all and just backing him up at every chance she got. She even made a statement saying she couldn't think of a way she would have done things differently than him. And well, that's one of the worst statements you could possibly make. The problem is, for those that are unhappy with the Biden administration, and there are a lot, or to even the undecided voter, is that it just makes you come off as just another continuation of the same policies that they may already be dissatisfied with, right? You're not separating yourself from Biden enough. You're too soft-spoken about him and his cognitive gaffe. Like you don't stand out as much, right? Not to mention, it took way too long for Biden to step down, which gave her far less time to run her campaign as well. I think speaking with some of the everyday Americans or the blue-collar workers may have helped her elevate her campaigns quite a bit. Some argue she should have appeared in more, popular channels, but you can't really control who or what accepts your invitation, so I can't knock her too much for that. What really confused me, I'm going to be honest with you, and I can't seem to wrap my head around, is Latino men. Now, the women, Latino women, they went for Harris, but the men, what exactly happened there? Like, I heard some are saying there's sort of been a trend of Latino men leaning towards Trump or Republicans, but based on the exit polls, I'm not seeing anything, any trend, anything that could be considered a trend. Nothing that would have forecasted the drastic change from the amount of support that Biden got versus Harris, right? Like, how did that happen? Like, why? I honestly, I don't get it, right? What if Trump came out and said anything about helping Hispanics? I know the economy was one of the key issues pertaining to this election, but as far as I'm concerned, if you actually look at the quarterly GDP rate from the early 2010s to the Trump administration, lasting up until I think like 2020, up until COVID-19, there wasn't any significant or abnormal change, right? It was just following the trend that had already been established or present during the Obama presidency, right? The economy was already stable. It just kept growing from there on. So really, if anything, Trump inherited a stable and growing economy, whereas Biden got what was left of the COVID-19 to deal with after Trump. And it wasn't just domestic, right? I think people have to understand this. The COVID-19 affected the entire world, right? And that certainly has an effect on the US in terms of global supply chains and inflations. It was just, within the border of the country, but you have to consider like overseas as well. You can't just attribute all the goods to Trump, even though he hasn't come out with anything that would suggest it was his administration that did it, and then leave the blame to everybody else. Right, that's a childish point of view, I would argue, right? It's something an ignorant and stubborn person would ascribe to. Now, when it comes to Trump, it isn't him that I necessarily have an issue with, although he more than likely has as much skeletons and dirt on his hand as many of his pals in politics and businesses, and honestly, he and all of them can run hell for all I care, as I said many times, but when it comes to running for office, it's really the people who he surrounds himself with, right? People that are whispering in his ear. I mean, his base is just filled with like fear-mongering far rights, and white Republicans are, in the belief that America should be a white majority country, and they're blinded by these weird obsession of calling everything woke and saying America, it used to be great, but now everything has fallen apart, even though most of them from what I've seen. In fact, I actually can't even think of one who has even quoted or even referenced American history accurately. It honestly just comes out very insecure, and it's just a pathetic sight to see. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. It's honestly sad. With the way things are going, it seems to be likely that Republicans are going to have control of both the Senate and the House, not to mention a Republican majority Supreme Court and a Republican president. So it could be a full swing for Republicans to pass legislations in smooth and seamless fashion without much obstructions. So really anything can come out of this. I know Project 2025 has been a hot topic lately despite Trump disavowing it. It wouldn't be the first time he has lied, and he has went back on his words many times, so there really isn't much weight to it, not to mention the people behind Project 2025. If I'm correct, it's the Heritage Foundation. They've been involved with previous administrations, including Trump, so the contents in Project 2025 could very well be realized considering we are about to have a Republican majority in pretty much most, if not all, government sectors. Whether or not Trump will do the things he said he would do and the repercussions of those actions, only time will tell at this point. I know mass deportation has been one of the most recent controversies regarding his plans for his second term, and I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out because with the way he's describing it, deporting illegal migrants on that scale could have astronomical consequences, as you've probably heard. Even for Americans, right? And a lot of people don't know this, which is sad, but not only do a lot of undocumented immigrants already fill in certain roles, that you might consider essential jobs such as constructions, agricultures, but they also pay taxes in billions. So speaking in terms of economy, it could drastically hold things down, which is strange considering, again, the economy was one of the prominent, key issue in this election. I think Biden really did let the border and migrant crisis out of hand at one point. But even then, keep in mind, he did try to introduce a border security bill, except it was shot down by Republicans, right? It never even made past the Senate. Trump knew about this, right? He knew about this bill and, opposed it. Probably because he didn't want Biden to resolve the one issue he's using it to market his campaign, right? If you look at any of his ads, it's talking about border and immigration. So, yet his followers still fall for his BS. It's a really sad sight to see. I gotta be honest with you. And what you have to understand in a predicament like this is that there is no simple fast fix for an issue of this scale. You need to consider humanitarian concerns as well as the repercussions of sudden mass deportation. If anything, the process should be slow and steady. Right, there is no pathway to citizenship for a lot of these migrants. Right, a lot of Trump base, they seem to live in a romanticized bubble where all of these problems can just simply be resolved if you just deport them. But they aren't taking into account the fact that there are millions of undocumented immigrants present. A lot of them do have essential roles. Right, they already pay taxes that contribute to the economy. It wasn't their fault that things got out of hand. Right, to this extent. To shrug all of that is just disparaging humanitarianism, right? Legal or not illegal. But at this point, we'll have to see how things play out. If Republicans win the House, and more than likely they will, it could give Trump almost unlimited power if no one opposes his legislations. Am I saying all hell will break loose? Not really, because there's no point in fear-mongering and nobody benefits from that. But I'm not going to lie. Things can change so fast, good or bad, with how everything's looking. Now, I may or may not upload future updated videos regarding this administration, how they're handling matters. It depends. I don't really see much point because it doesn't take much to enlighten yourself on these issues. If you really want to know, or if you prefer to be willfully ignorant, which I think a lot of people are in this case, then so be it, right? But you certainly don't need someone to hold your hand. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a good day, and I will catch you later.